One use of the ACSF is in industry and identifying the core skills of language literacy and numeracy in training packages. So Anoni, you interviewed Paul. Do you want to talk a little bit about what you found out about Paul's training needs?
Okay. The focus of that conversation was to identify appropriate development needs for Paul. He'd just been promoted to team leader position, and therefore he'll be undertaking a Certificate 3 in frontline management. So what we needed to do was work out a development plan that will provide the best outcomes for Paul and for the business.
Yep.
So the way we'd go about that is, first of all, looking at the training package. We'd look at all the units and we'd look at what are the English language literacy and numeracy skills that are embedded in those units. Secondly, we'd become familiar with the workplace. What are the workplace expectations of team leaders in this industry?
Yep.
And then we look at Paul's current skills. So we might assess him even more.
Yep.
We'd look at the scenario. And we'd see whether there are any gaps in the English language literacy and numeracy skills between where Paul is at now and what the training package requires and what the workplace expects.
What are some of the core skills requirements of the Certificate 3 in frontline management?
Okay, well, let's start with one of the core units. It's called BSB FLM 312B, Contribute to Team Effectiveness. So what we'd do is we'd have a look at the elements in that core unit and we'd see where are the English language and literacy skills. This unit is about planning with the team to meet expected outcomes, developing team cohesion, participating in and facilitating the work team, and communicating with management and the organisation. The training package says that at this level, work would normally be carried out within known routines, methods and procedures, but it may also involve a number of complex and non-routine activities that require some discretion and judgment. So this suggests that in terms of context, we're in the ballpark of level 3 and 4. In order to help us establish whether the training package requires level 3 skills or level 4 skills, we'd also need to look at the characteristics of the texts, of the kind of speaking and listening that has to be done, and the tasks involved and how much support is available. So this core unit, Contribute to Team Effectiveness, has 4 elements that include oral communication skills. They are contribute to the team by consulting, support team cohesion by encouraging members to participate, encouraging members to take responsibility for their own work, and providing feedback to team members, but doing it in a way that values that contribution, as well as addressing issues, concerns and problems. So a lot of negotiation is involved in that element. The other 2 elements are participate in the work team and communicate with management. For this core unit, the oral communication skills map to level 4. And that's mainly in the systems aspect because it's about how the organisation communicates, and in the cooperative aspect in meetings.
Oral communication is divided into 2 indicators, speaking and listening. So do you want to look at speaking first?
Okay, speaking at level 4, 4.07 says demonstrate flexibility in spoken texts by choosing appropriate structures and strategies in a range of contexts. So the kind of things involved in this core unit about team effectiveness suggests a need to problem solve and reconcile points of view during meetings, for example. In terms of cohesion and structure when speaking, the kinds of discussion implied in this core unit of the training package would require using strategies to confirm, clarify or repair understanding. There might be disagreements and make constructive additions to what has been said, as well as initiating topic shifts that might happen if the team leader was facilitating a meeting. So that's in relation to one unit, contribute to team effectiveness. There are other units in the Certificate 3, and we'd need to look at all the other units in relation to oral communication to get the full picture of the levels embedded in each unit.
Yep.
And then we do that for all the other skills, for writing, for reading, for numeracy. So the oral communication texts that we're talking about are meetings or negotiations or communicating with management. And any of these conversations may include some specialised vocabulary and they may be fairly complex. The task complexity may involve a number of processes such as extracting, comparing and interpreting information, reconciling varying opinions on methods of working or changes in approach to work. And the team leader role often involves updating procedures. Team leaders often have to explain changes to other workers. And then they'd have to hold discussions in relation to these changes. So these are examples of a range of oral communication tasks.
So what would you say in terms of the levels?
Well, in terms of the workplace expectations of this role, these factors of task and text complexity that influence performance help us to conclude that the workplace would expect level 4 oral communication skills. In terms of context, there's unpredictability, and the level of unpredictability involved in working at this role and the situations that arise would mean that level 4 oral communication skills would be ideal. And also in relation to listening, level 4 skills would be necessary. 4.08, the listening one, says applies appropriate strategies to extract main ideas from oral texts across a range of contexts. And the range of oral texts might be negotiations, discussions, meetings, reports to management. Taking minutes in a meeting would be an example of level 4 listening skills. It does involve writing skills. And that kind of example would be predominantly in the cooperative aspect or the systems aspect.
So what about Paul's oral communication skills? He said in the interview that he is pretty confident in reporting and presenting to management.
Yeah, that's an area he is confident in. Another example is giving feedback to team members. I think that would require level 4 skills if it's to be done well and sensitively. When you're giving feedback, it involves a number of processes. You may have to compare the ideal standard of behaviour with the actual behaviour, that kind of thing. And when you're giving feedback, it might be that the conversation is a bit emotionally charged. It's important to maintain good working relationships with all team members. So level 4 oral communication skills would be ideal.
What's required?
They might be... It might be possible to do some of these tasks at level 3, but level 4 would be ideal.
In terms of sort of giving feedback, Paul actually said that that could be a bit of a challenge for him.
He did. He was concerned about becoming aggressive.
So
what I'd say is that if we want to achieve harmonious, ongoing working relationships, these would be assisted by level 4 oral communication skills.
Wouldn't it be possible though just with level 3 skills to be able to run meetings? Why would you need level 4?
It might be possible to run meetings with level 3 oral communication skills. But if we think of Paul, this context is completely new to him. He has no experience running meetings. In these kinds of meetings, they're often discussing changes, they're discussing how they go about their work, and very often people have wildly different views, and so it's about reconciling different views, keeping people on track within a time limit. So the kind of skills at level 4 are about keeping the group on track, maybe making topic shifts, and moving on from disagreement.
So Paul said that he had no experience of running team meetings and he'd never followed an agenda, and he actually said he wouldn't have a clue of where he'd be getting the information from and presenting to the group. So what does that mean in terms of Paul and his skills?
Well, it suggests that the context is new to him, and that maybe there's a gap in terms of the cooperative and systems aspects of oral communication. Paul's skills are likely to be at level 3.
Yeah. Now, Paul is a native speaker and he seemed to speak quite fluently. So what does that mean?
Paul is a native speaker and he shows some skills at level 3 and some skills at level 4. For example, his grammar is generally strong and vocabulary would be at level 4. He uses idioms and colloquial language such as push the limits and learning the ropes.
Yep.
But the conversation in the scenario is really at a level 3.
Yeah.
The context of talking about training needs might be slightly unfamiliar, but there was a lot of support. I asked questions and he tended to give short answers. So the text, which was our conversation, was very highly structured. There were prompts and he needed to confirm or disagree, really. So the task complexity was not very high in terms of what he had to do. His listening skills were a little bit higher than the speaking skills because I tended to use longer sentences that were a little bit more complex. So in terms of that conversation, the listening requirements were a little bit higher than the speaking that he showed. Okay, so if we summarise the workplace expectations of the team leader role, some of the key tasks that we talked about in the scenario were presenting an issue or using an agenda to run a meeting. That's a level 4 task in the cooperative aspect. Discussing issues would be a level 4 task in the cooperative or systems aspect, and giving feedback to a team member is also level 4 in the systems aspect. Presenting to managers, another level 4 systems aspect of oral communication. So those are the workplace expectations. So from the evidence of the interview, where there was a lot of support from the trainer, we would rate his oral communication skills overall at level 3, even though some of the performance features of his listening might have been at level 4. We'd have to say overall his skills are level 3. And in relation to the workplace expectations of the team leader role and the training package requirements of Certificate 3 in frontline management, we see that in the cooperative aspect and the systems aspect, level 4 oral communication skills are needed. So there's a gap there.
So how would you sum up about Paul?
Well, for Paul's training needs, he needs to build confidence and have practice in oral communication tasks in the cooperative aspect and the systems aspect, so he can bridge the gap from level 3 to level 4.
So we've been talking about oral communication so far, so how about we look at another core skill, which is numeracy, and see how that impacts on Paul's training needs and how the ACSF can help us sort of clarify what those needs might be.
Okay, so again what we'd do is we'd start with the units in the training package qualification, the Certificate 3 in frontline management. And there's one unit that's particularly relevant to numeracy. It's another core unit, BSB FLM 305C, Support Operational Plan. This unit talks about the performance outcomes, skills and knowledge to provide support for operational practices and procedures within the organisation's productivity and profitability plans. So this includes things like contributing to the operational plan, monitoring and adjusting operational performance. And there are 2 elements that really relate to numeracy, I think. Element 1, contribute to implementation of operational plan by collecting and recording details of resource requirements, for example, personnel, materials. And element 3, support operations by utilising performance systems to assess team progress in achieving plans and targets, comparing actual productivity and performance with budgets, targets and results, and following recording processes in accordance with organisational requirements.
Well, it's it's pretty clear that that's going to require a lot of, an ability to collect, analyse and also to report on all of that sort of data.
The training package also says that frontline managers are actively engaged in planning activities to achieve measurable stated objectives of the team and organisation in order to provide products and services to the customers and within the organisation's productivity and profitability plans. And at this level, work would normally be carried out within known routines, methods and procedures, and may also involve a number of complex and non-routine activities. So Dave, what would this mean in the workplace?
So in terms of the training package requirements, it's pretty clear that they're quite sophisticated requirements, and a lot of this will require high-level skills in terms of numeracy, mainly obviously related to the statistics and the data collection. But what Paul's going to have to be dealing with is some quite complex information and tasks, things that haven't been familiar to him in the past. So in terms of the numeracy indicators, all three of them are going to be at quite a high level, and especially the second one, which is the sort of the doing the mathematics, where he would have to be collecting the information, putting it together and representing that, and the assumption would be this day and age that he would have to do that using spreadsheets, and it's quite clear to me that therefore the requirements are at level 4, where he'd have to be able to look at quite complex documents, so that's covering the first indicator, analysing it, putting it into spreadsheets, creating graphs, which is therefore the second indicator when he's actually doing the task. And then he would also be expected to operate at quite a high level on the third indicator, which is about how he reports that. He would probably have to produce written documentation, summaries and reports to management, that it's at level 4 in terms of the numeracy requirements.
Okay, so that's what the workplace expects, that's what the training package requires.
Yep.
So what about Paul's numeracy skills? He says he doesn't have a clue about where to find the information, how to put this data together. How would you assess him?
Yeah, so I think it's quite clear from Paul, although again he's quite quick and can do things that are familiar with him, so he can read the graphs that I think he's familiar with in the workplace, but I think that means that he's really at level 3 in terms of those sorts of skills, especially in terms of indicator 309, which is about the sorts of text that he can deal with. But I think, and also his skills in terms of his ability to read those graphs, which was quite quick, which is getting onto indicator 310, and also his ability to quickly take the data from the graph and convert a fraction into a percentage also indicates that his skills are quite good and probably at exit level 3 in terms of that second indicator. It's not necessarily a lot of information about the third indicator. In terms of the technical aspects though here, his admission that he has no clue about how to collect the data and presumably therefore how to use the software Excel in order to do this really means that he's got a shortfall in terms of that technical aspect, which probably means he might even be operating at level 2 in terms of that. So summing up, I'd say there's no question that he's at level 3, probably exit level 3 in terms of a lot of his skills, probably a little bit lower in terms of the technical aspects, but that basically there is that gap again between where he's operating at the moment, mainly because he's operating within familiar sort of area, and the jump is going to take him up into level 4 because of the training package. So there's a definite gap there, especially in relationship to the technical aspects.
Dave, you've been talking about numeracy in the technical aspect. What about the systems aspect? It seems to me that this core unit of the training package, support operational plans, is a lot about looking at budgets and performance and communicating in teams and between teams and with management. Isn't that about systems too?
So I think in terms of the work requirements and what's expected, he's going to have to face both, look at both of those aspects, the technical, which we've talked about a lot, and the systems. So the systems is really crucial, and I think he's quite familiar with a lot of the information, but that jump up for him to take responsibility and, as he said, to collect the information is something that he's not familiar with, and then there's putting that into the software and Excel and producing reports and stuff. So I think in terms of systems, he's probably is at level 3 and exit level 3, as he is in most of his math skills, but I think there's that technical aspect that's still down at level 2. So really summing up, I think in terms of his numeracy, there's certainly a gap. I think we've identified that the training package is definitely at level 4, and he's operating generally at exit level 3, except in that technical aspect. So there's sort of a little bit of a greater gap in terms of his technical aspects, whereas his overall math skills and in terms of systems is probably at level 3. So there's a little bit of bridging that Paul will need to do in terms of his numeracy skills to meet the requirements of the training package in the workplace.
Okay, so there's a bit of a spiky profile.
Yeah, even within the numeracy and across the different aspects.
In terms of Paul's development needs, we've had a look at 2 core units from the qualification. We've said that his oral communication is generally at level 3,
yep.
And we're going to concentrate on the cooperative and the systems aspect of oral communication to move his skills from level 3 to level 4.
Yep.
And in numeracy, we're moving from level 2 in the technical aspect up to level 4, and from level 3 to 4 in the systems aspect.
I think that sums up quite well.
Okay. We'll be able to adjust his development plan when we get more information about his skills. And the Australian Core Skills Framework allows us to be quite precise about where we target the development needs.